Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to EIG's 64th webinar, a fireside chat discussion with our guest experts from industry, Dani Kaplan from SMC Data and Greg Schlegel from the Supply Chain Risk Management Consortium. We are looking forward to an interactive discussion with each and every one of you, and we hope that your family are healthy and safe. Thank you again for joining us. We appreciate that you're taking the time to join us, especially during these summer times. And we are looking forward to getting into how to build an evolving, resilient enterprise. Again, we look forward to an interaction today with you. Please enter your questions and comments in the chat window, and we'll get to those as soon as we can. I see there's a question in the chat right now. Maybe we can get to that in a minute. And again, this is the 5th webinar, M&A integration, realizing seamless integration to scale your business and to realize financial performance and risk benefits. Our core beliefs and values are centered on best-in-class people, process, data, and technology can solve fulfillment problems, improve cash flow, enhance customer experience, and increased revenue. Therefore, our discussion will demonstrate that ERP implementations do not need to be disruptive, especially as we relates to M&A. My name is Jim Vries, the founder and president of Enhance International Group. EIG is an exchange of passionate experts to guide your transformation to provide self-generating and self-funding results. We have over 50 consultants, consulting companies, and SaaS providers to help you vet the best-in-class providers for you. EIG serves as that master integrator, like the Swiss Army knife. Our team is dedicated to empowering your organization workforce by leveraging EIG's partners' tenured thought leadership expertise. Our goal is to meet or exceed expectations with customized, predictable, sustainable, and repeatable 90-day action plans that are self-funding, providing you with a competitive advantage. Today, we are very fortunate to have 2 highly regarded experts in the industry. First, Dani Kaplan from SMC Data, which was established in 2014. Dani has over 20 years been at SMC Data and 40 years of experience in ERP software. Dani, a few words?
Sorry. I represent supply chain software for the past 25 years. It's integrated software for manufacturing, distribution, and food, which translate to, in an M&A world, a manufacturer can buy a distributor buy a manufacturer without having multiple ERP. We have warehouse automation, financial, analytic, and the tracking of the landed cost.
Thanks, Dani. And Greg, founder of the Supply Chain Risk Management Consortium in 2010. Greg is a celebrated speaker and esteemed author of the book, Supply Chain Risk Management, an Emerging Discipline, published in 2015, a best-selling book on Amazon to this day. Greg?
Hey, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. As a founder of Supply Chain Risk Management Consortium, we've been in business for a little over 12 years. Our space is supply chain risk and resiliency. I've taught supply chain risk at Lehigh University for 10 years, still teach ERM, Enterprise Risk Management, at Villanova University in Pennsylvania. I spent 8 years with IBM as a supply chain executive consultant. Spent 30 years, perhaps like many of you, as a supply chain executive practitioner with a couple of Fortune 100 companies. I've taught supply chain management at 6 different US universities and was president of Apex, now ASCM, back in the late 90s. Back to you, Jim.
Thanks, Greg. And just a reminder, we are slowing down during the summer, but we will be ramping up in the fall. We'll be having webinars starting at the end of August on supply chain risk management. We have supply chain management readiness, supply chain risk and resiliency, artificial intelligence, Six Sigma, Sigma Magic statistical analysis. We have digital twins coming. We have new product introduction webinars. So we're going to have a full slate this fall as we kick back after the holidays and get back into the swing of things. With that, we'll start off with Dani, a few words about SMC data.
We provide solution for manufacturing, distribution, and food. It's a single database software that enable a manufacturer to acquire a distribution company without having multiple ERP. A distributor acquire the manufacturer having one single ERP, and a food soft company can be both a distributor and manufacturer, taking a big source which can cut it to stack, distribute to the restaurant, or be a plain distributor. It has the warehouse management, analytic, financials. It's a total integrated system. We enable a client to use a smartphone to enter orders. The reps enter orders. There is no need to call the customer service anymore to place the order on the phone or fax. Real-time software over the cloud for the manufacturing, distribution, and food.
Thanks, Dani. And Greg, a few words about the consortium.
You bet. I'll give you a real thumbnail sketch of who we are and what we provide. On the right-hand side, we have about 30, I think we're 30 companies, about 1,700 supply chain risk professionals around the globe. We operate in 23 countries at the moment. These companies that you see on the right, they bring tools, techniques, methodologies, and software solutions to help us do 4 things: identify, assess, mitigate, and manage supply chain risks. That's all we do. On the left-hand side, what do we provide? Online education. We have 2 courses, a basic course in supply chain risk and resiliency. We have a course dedicated to public health care, supply chain risk and resiliency. They culminate in certificates from us and our partners. We do virtual training like this. We do classroom training. Remember those days, face-to-face? We used to do 25 classroom workshops around the globe a year. Hopefully that'll come back. We provide certificates, certifications in this space. We help organizations. We bring resiliency and risk best practices from our book, as Jim mentioned. We coach companies. We build war rooms for those companies. We bring software visibility. We're very excited about 2 online assessments, which we'll touch on. One today, supply chain management readiness assessment. And the other one is a supply chain risk and resiliency 90-day action plan, which uses AI and ML algorithms. Back to you, Jim.
Thanks, Greg. And just a reminder, there is a polling question out there. Hopefully you'll be able to get to it while we're doing our brief intro here. Just a little bit of background on EIG. Towards the end of the deck, you'll see our full family of 50 consulting companies, SaaS providers, and consultants. So please do look at our website, consultingeig.com. Has a full list of all of our training courses, over 50 training courses, over 50 webinars, free webinars for your perusal, and a list of all of our consultants and consulting companies and SaaS providers. So just looking at this slide, because this is relevant for today and for us and many parts of our evolution, is we all want to deliver self-sustaining growth. And describing supply chain risk management, we are going to start by recognizing that every supply chain is an ecosystem. You may have heard the saying that we are only as strong as our weakest link. We take it a step further in this, and following with this bicycle analogy, the dry pedal wheel representing the strategy, how to get there with the execution wheel being represented by that rear wheel. One strong drive by the wheel, by that pedal, results in many rotations, resulting in positive execution, as long as we're pointed in the right direction. Therefore, the drive chain represents the tactics that keep up the momentum so that we can get where we're going to. A strong link strategy to execution ecosystem creates positive momentum for the company, its employees, customers, suppliers, and stockholders. In summary, 3 considerations in managing a supply chain include: are you making linked decisions between strategy, tactical, and operational time horizons? If not, your company is going to be unbalanced and may even be derailed. Linking strategy through execution will build your cadence. The better your cadence, the better your profitability and scalability. A solid strategy should result in many execution cycles, resulting so that momentum and cadence can be built. Quoting Albert Einstein, our favorites, one of our greatest favorites, life is like a bicycle. To keep your balance, you need to keep on moving. So let's get moving with the webinar. Again, this is the capstone webinar of our webinars. All these first 4 webinars can be found on consultingeig.com. So feel free to get to that. So here we have the first question. Again, the link is in the Q&A and in the chat window. In both windows, you can click on that link to answer the question. Looks like we have a couple folks answered provided a response so far. We encourage folks to go ahead and answer that first question. Have you been or are you involved in an M&A process? So let's check out the results. And Greg and Dani, any words of wisdom or thoughts on this?
Yes, supply chain.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yes, supply chain can be a double-edged sword. It can work very well, or it can be a disaster. Depends how you plan it and how you start the whole thing for it. One thing that people forget is the accountant look at the financial end, the lawyer look at the legal end, the bank lend the money, and everybody forgets about the multiple ERP. They don't communicate with each other, which result in data integration and access user interface.
Thanks, Dani. Greg?
I would echo Dani's thoughts. What I've seen in my 40-year career in supply chain is, again, most M&A, basically, they do the due diligence from a financial point of view. And then what happens when the 2 organizations and cultures clash, the systems clash as well. And so, what we've seen as practitioners, consultants, and academics is they muscle the living daylights out of the IT system, just in an attempt to get the ability to make, ship, and bill in order. So it gets short shrift, I guess, is my quick answer.
Yeah, it seems like from my experience over 40 years now is that, and I was an M&A right from the beginning in my career, and I just saw it happen time and time again, that there was a wish of an M&A of what it would be like, and the actuality of what it became was always short of what the company set out to do. We always have aspirations, and the people who made the deal, who got all the money, they're on to their next M&A deal. So I've lived it in the beginning of my career at the receiving end of it and fixing those issues. And then later in my career, got involved in the beginning of it and watched everybody wanting to take shortcuts in that due diligence. So due diligence is definitely an area that I like to focus on. And as Greg said, it's very often just financially focused. And as Dani said, not results in in looking at the ERP implementation, underestimating that. The second question is, have you had experience in the M&A process? Has it been good, very good, not so good, or beyond words to explain? So please respond to that. We look forward to your responses. See a few more responses than the one response would be fantastic. What has been your experience? Very good, good, not so good. And in the chat window, please enter your comments in here. So we have one respondent say beyond words to explain. I can feel that one, Gene. Thank you for your response. It's always beyond words to explain. Greg, your thoughts?
I would answer. I can't get in at the moment, but I would say my experience as a practitioner has been good, only because we did the due diligence when one of my companies was buying other companies on a regular basis. So we did a pretty good job of acquiring and then assimilating about 5 or 6 small different companies in the industry sector. We did 5 or 6 ERP crossovers in about 10 months. Very hectic, but we took a very structured approach, and it was driven by IT systems, ERP and supply chain. So we got the funding, we got the backing from the executive team, and our job was to assimilate. Think of it, 6 different companies in what, 10 or 11 months without dropping one order. That's a pretty tall order for an IT supply chain team. We did pretty well.
That's awesome. Great.
So I would say it was pretty good.
Yeah, I think, yeah, back in my days at GE, we had it figured out in the 80s and 90s. We knew how to do it very well, but since that time, I haven't seen folks do it, but it can be done with good planning, to your point. Dani, your thoughts? What have you seen?
You ask me?
Yeah, what have you seen, your experience?
I have good experience. In the 90s, I took a company through M&A for $6 to $45 million using a single M&A ERP software. Lately, in today's market, we have one company who went from $100 million to $1 billion. They just bought company number 76. The name is Imperial Dead, and they're using a single ERP software for manufacturing distribution of food, which belongs to the company I represent. And the third one is a manufacturing company worldwide who bought a distributor. The 2 ERP software combined to our software, and it's running very well now. The case study will be later in the presentation.
Thanks, Dani. Yeah, I think it can definitely be done well. I've seen it done well, but we'll talk about how to make that work in this webinar from an ERP perspective and a few other perspectives. So we'll go into some M&A historical trends, where we're at in the market, some best practices in M&A. We'll then get into leveraging ERPs to realize that financial performance and risk benefits that we're all set out to do. And then Dani will get into a couple case studies of transition success stories, and then close it out with some integrated ERP benefits. So with that, we're going to get started. Greg?
You bet. Thanks, Jim. We thought we'd get you grounded with a couple of statistics of M&A trends, as you see on this slide, since 2004. So essentially, you can see the history on the x-axis at the bottom from 2004 through 2021. The blue boxes, the blue charts, bar charts, are the total value of the deals each year. And then the black boxes on the top are the total number of deals or transactions. So again, you can get a sense of up and down, peaks and troughs. With the pandemic, there's been a sharp increase in M&A, and though that's for a myriad of reasons, which we will kind of discuss in a couple more slides, but we just wanted to get you grounded to give you a sense of the volume and the dollar value from 2004 to 2021. So before we move, any comments from our panelists?
Yeah, I guess I'll just throw it in. What I'm seeing is just a plethora of deals going on out there, of acquisitions and mergers. So it's very hot. Obviously, in the logistics market, it's exploding in this M&A, and I think we're going to just see more and more because companies, as Greg has, and we talk about supply chain risk and resiliency, a lot of companies are going to go under. And then when they go under, because there's a shortage of logistics provided services and many other things we're short on, those companies will be bought up quickly and more mergers will be happening. So only more to come here. And this is going to drive quite a bit of the economy in the next couple of years, I would guess. Dani?
It's a brave new world we are facing now because the supply chain shortages create very strong companies and very weak companies. So the big fish is eating the small fish, so to speak. So we're going to see the trend starting more and more of M&A happening.
Great. Greg?
Yep, you bet. We said we'd share with you a few more statistics and some insights, basically compelling reasons for M&A. This comes from Deloitte's Institute, which they're doing a great job talking about M&A and supply chain as well. Just a couple of threads up on the top. This is kind of a summary of what they call 4 broad strategies that align under 2 threads, offensive and defensive. That's the way they think, almost like a football game. You can see on the bottom, they, typical consultant 2x2 on the y-axis of that chart on the bottom is the level of impact from mild to severe. On the x-axis is the ability to act from weak to strong. And then the 2 pillars are a defensive strategy when you get into M&A or an offensive strategy. And the real insight, I think, here is their chart on the right-hand side, where they talk about the future of M&A framework. And again, on the y-axis, they break it down into defensive and offensive strategies. And then the 2 columns in the chart are CEO priorities, meaning why would you do this? And then potential resources and potential benefits on the right. So we can just go through. Take a look at the defensive approaches on the top. Salvage value, all right? You're trying to improve your operational efficiency or increase your business flexibility. That's a defensive measure. The other defense is you're safeguarding the market to maintain your competitive advantage. And essentially, you're preparing the business for maybe a new world order, your business and others. Then on the bottom, we have the offensive strategies. And the first one is you're transforming your business to safeguard the future. Essentially, what you're trying to do is rebalance your investment portfolio and capture additional revenue in what they call adjacencies. And then finally, the big one, from an offensive point of view, you're going to change the game. And essentially, you're investing to scale at the edge, and you're attempting to drive a new world order associated with your organization. So thought it was a pretty good grounding element or slide to give you a sense of why and how folks think about M&A from both a defensive strategy and an offensive strategy. There's more. Just see if our panelists have any comments on this thread.
Great. Dani, go ahead.
It's a new world now that we must face because life is changing. What worked before the culvert is not working now. Justice in time is no longer an option. So a distributor will buy a manufacturer in order to not to be dependent on getting the goods. and the manufacturer buys distributor because they don't have the production line come to a standstill. So it become a brave new world now of company merging of related industries and having the ability to function without being dependent on the vendor or supplier that creates a late order delivery or production like disruptions.
Yeah, so we'll see some consolidation, as Dani said, in buying suppliers to shorten your supply chain, because right now every handoff costs you money. So you may see more of that coming up to buy suppliers to shorten that and control that, so you can drive performance. So that's an excellent point to be made. And I also see people buying up markets on companies that are financially unstable, that might be over leveraged, but they have a good customer portfolio and they're trying to increase market share. So it's going to be a very interesting few years here, and those companies that have the ability to buy more and more, you're going to see them looking to scale quite a bit. And what you got to watch out for, of course, is you buy so fast and scale so fast that your costs end up overrunning your growth scale. So that's always the balance here, is that scalability factor that needs to be always looked at. You can't outgrow your sins. That's the danger in this world. So with that, I think we'll move to the next slide. Greg?
You bet. One more. We'll finish this thread with you with a profile of. Well, we thought we'd give you the sectors with the most M&A activity. Basically, we'll start on the right-hand side. Q1 2021. You can see the frequency table of industry sectors who had the highest value in terms of US dollars in billion, from finance, technology, healthcare, industry, industrials, and utilities. Then we can move over to the left-hand side in Q1 2022. And there are two new ones at the top: communication services and real estate, not surprising. And then the three on the bottom are three of the same that had high activity from a dollar value point of view in Q1 2021. So we just wanted to give you a perspective between within 1 year period, year over year. It has changed a bit in terms of the complexion of the sectors, and where it goes in the rest of 2022, that's a toss-up, as we talked about it, because essentially, remember, in a crisis, which is still what we're all wrestling with, in a crisis, cash is king. The folks who can produce cash and have cash will essentially be the acquirers, all right? And they will look for opportunities to get more vertically integrated, reduce their lead times, increase their product portfolio and their customer base, and on and on and on. So just a little bit of a final picture image of a 12-year profile of M&A activity by sector. Guys?
Dani?
It's a brand new reality we are facing now, that what happened before is not happening now. The communication became a major factor in our world, especially in the ERP system, where before we had the server in-house, it's on cloud now. So to give the companies flexibility now, not to depend on a particular vendor to communication. They can have a server on the cloud. If there is with a backup server in a remote location. So if we have a Katrina in New York in the Mideast, the server in the South will take over. And unlike before, when we have the server in-house, you're out of business.
Thanks, Dani. I think what I like about this chart is, comparing year over year, Q1 to Q2, you know, you can look at it in this in a couple different ways, but you see the financial market was predominant in Q1 of 2021 and now has fallen off from 241 to 92 billion. So you can see that in some areas here, things have scaled back in 2022 versus last year. I think there was a lot of money floating around at that time. We were in a different state of the economy with the government funding us. And now what we're seeing is the government is not funding us anymore. So you're seeing a little bit scaled back at things, but you know, real estate has popped up. So there's a lot of real estate on the market because of the COVID pandemic. So there's quite a bit of activity there relative to other sectors. So I think, you know, this is going to be, it's pretty volatile right now in these years after COVID until it settles down to what it will be in the future, but expect a lot of changing of the guard, so to speak. But as Greg said, cash is king. Whoever's got the cash in capital that can borrow at low rates, which is getting more of a challenge, as we know, as the Fed keeps raising, like they just did 75 basis points yesterday. This is going to change dramatically a year from today, and the Fed wants to see it change so that it slows down the economy. So this is going to be very linked to the economy, and whoever has that cash and doesn't have to, whoever has to borrow the least amount of money is going to come out on top. So those are my thoughts on that. And with that, we got Greg's favorite slide.
Yep, we finished. We thought we'd finish up with this and pose the rhetorical question, why is M&A so hard? Well, to us, it's because it's all about perspective. So we'll let you take a look and noodle on this picture for 5 seconds.
I swear it's a 6, Greg.
Again, it's all about perspective. And my comment on M&A from a risk professional point of view is just think of it this way. M&A is always a risk event for both camps, the acquirer and the acquiree. All right. It's a risk event for both organizations. We showed the cartoon in the front of the presentation. Not all M&As end up in terms of the expectations that both sides were looking for. So it is a matter of perspective, and I'll let the guys have their comments as well before we move forward.
Dani?
Lack of planning will create a disaster in an M&A. Unless you look at all aspects, the technology, the user, the ability of the user to use technology, you end up with one grand mess. Another issue is if you have a software like SAP, which require years to implement, and you buy a company, you end up with 2 separate systems that don't integrate and create a data integration issue. And then, of course, there's the finger pointing, my fault, your fault, or his fault.
Great, Dani. And I will get into this in a few slides, so I'm going to hold my comments on this cultural issue for just a few slides in the next section. So with that, I'm going to move on to best practices and M&A, and we're going to start off with, you know, what are we really doing here? Again, we're linking strategy to execution, and our goal here is to link those two together. And I think what they do very well, or what our friend Michael Porter did very well back in the day, 1985. This is old stuff, but it's still relevant. It hasn't really changed. You have your value chain activities, and then you have your primary activities of your business. They really haven't changed. Even if you go to a service industry, you still have these core pieces of your business, and they have to link. They need to talk to each other. And if they don't talk to each other, so now you have 2 companies, and they both have their own infrastructure, their own ecosystems. These 2 ecosystems need to connect. They all both have the new product development, the procurement, the supply chain management, finance, IT, business. How are you going to link these? And each of them has its own costs. You need to be at 70, 80% gross margin in order to be profitable. If you have a bloated overhead in one of those companies, and especially if it's the acquiring company, what you're going to find is that that acquiring company is going, that overhead, when you put it on that lower overhead company, which often happens with a big company buying small companies, that small company that was purchased, it can't absorb that overhead cost at that high. And all of a sudden, the margin for that particular small company is out of control. And then it's not profitable. It was profitable by itself, but it can't absorb that new overhead. So one of the lessons I learned very early on is you need to integrate seamlessly through an ERP, but you also have to understand the financial benefits as what it will be when it comes. It's not good enough just to say that the company was viable by itself. It has to be viable when integrated fully into the infrastructure of the acquiring company. Greg, Dani, your thoughts?
Yes, if you don't plan ahead of having a single ERP, and it's not only a single ERP, but it should be an ERP that enable the buying companies to use it, like an SAP story that take a few years to implement. You end up with two ERP systems. When one does not know about the other one, warehouse inventory remotely, integration issue, data corruption, and the user having to hop jump from software to software. It creates a lot of frustration, and often it's a good base of failure.
Thanks, Dani. Greg?
My takeaway on this, folks, with my experience as well, is one thing. This is good project management. If you're when you go through your M&A, you have to build out a project plan, have a project lead, and touch all the affected disciplines and departments. Otherwise, it's up for grabs.
That's a great summary, Greg. Thank you. And I'll just add one last note from Peter Drucker, or James Collin on Peter Drucker once observed that the drive from M&A comes from less from sound reasoning and more from the fact that doing deals is much more exciting way to spend your day than doing the actual work. All right, a bit of levity here. You got to break it up. All right. All right. So with that, again, we don't want to bore you with all the details here, but I think Ted Rouse, Bain and Company, I think they know a little bit about M&A. I think we would all agree that they are definitely one of the leaders and in this field, that they are doing a great job. So Tony Rouse, a partner at Bain and Company in Chicago and the co-leader of Bain's global M&A practice. And Tony Frame is a partner from London and a leader in London's post-merger integration and consumer products practice. These guys are the best of the best. And they said, you know, what makes a successful integration? The key to avoiding the risk of mergers or acquisitions is to realizing its potential value is always a challenge. It's complicated by the simple fact that there are no two deals that should be integrated in the same way. That's what we always like to do. We say, oh, they're all going to be the same. No, that's not the case. And when you have a strong PM, that's why you need, as Greg said, a good, strong PM, because a strong PM can take in those differences over time. And so they came up with 10 essential guidelines that can make the task more manageable to lead to the right outcome. And they list them down there and they said, you know, follow the money. Well, what do they mean by that? Follow the money on the cost and revenue side. Do you have everything covered? Tailor your actions to the nature of the deal. Don't try to expand. Know what's going to be in scope and out of scope. What do you want of that company you're acquiring? What do you not want out of that company that you're acquiring? Be very deliberate. Resolve the power and the people issues quickly. There's going to be a lot of anxiety out there of the key people that you're in that organization you're acquiring, and make sure that the people that are coming in and doing the work are sensitive to that, and that you resolve issues quickly and communicate. One of the biggest failures here is the lack of communication. So you got to communicate with the stakeholders and know when to communicate. Don't wait too long. Generally, we wait too long to communicate. By that time, the talent that you needed to make the M&A work walked out the door. They quit. Start the integration when you announce the deal. Manage the integration through a decision drumbeat. Make sure there's a drumbeat. Everybody understands what are the stages, where are we at. Make sure it's communicated throughout the organization. Handpick the leaders of the integration team. Commit to one culture and make known that culture. So there is a culture of the acquired company. Make sure that they understand what they're going into. Or what we did at GE very often in the 80s and 90s, and we just said, we bought you, we're not going to touch you. We like you the way you are, and we just want your stuff as part of GE umbrella. We're going to bring one guy in or one gal in, and they'll be on your executive team, and you're going to operate the way you operate today. We're not going to mess with you because we don't want to mess up what you have built, because GE bringing GE in would destroy the company. So again, you got to win those hearts and minds of all your folks and maintain momentum in the base of the business of both companies, and monitor the performance closely, and invest to build a repeatable integration mode, which is deal and the circumstances. So with that, Dani and Greg, comments?
Yes, one of the things in M&A you have to keep in mind is the end user. You have to get them involved at day one, and listen very carefully to their concern. Because if you don't listen to their concern and you avoid reacting to it, you might end up in a rebellion on your hand. The second action is, when you do an M&A, move slowly. Don't buy 2 or 3 at one time, because then you cannot pay attention to the individual company. It's like the famous word, slow and easy. By addressing the user need, which is priority number 1, you get the corporation and they will work with you together rather than working against you. In my other life, I took a company to $60 to $45 million, and the first thing I've done is asking the user, how do you do business today? How can we improve you what you do, and how we can help you?
Greg, your thoughts?
One thread. It's always a clash of cultures.
All right. Well, that preps us for the next slide, Greg. So we'll just move right to that. And there was somebody asking that same question. What do you think about change management? Well, it's the epicenter. Going back to my days at GE, they were doing so many M&As, you make your head spin, just like I think IBM and a lot of the big companies at that time. And we always looked at, how do you manage this change? And what we used in these M&As was this multi-stage process to manage the change and change systems and structures that we've been discussing already. And this is a change management process that's available now. Over 25 years ago, this was all confidential information within GE, but now it's widely available. You need to create that shared need, shape the vision, mobilize commitment, sustain the change, and control the results. So there's a lot of information under this to drive this, but this is a high-level structure to help you move from your current status, a transition phase, into the future status. So it is what GE did when they were buying and acquiring companies at a very rapid rate. And at the epicenter of that is the Q times A equals effectiveness. So it's exactly what we've been talking about here, is that quality times acceptance is effective. So if you have no acceptance in the organization, your effectiveness of that M&A is going to be a fat zero. It doesn't matter about the quality of the systems, and quality means here is the quality of the systems and more the technical jargon versus the people part, which is the acceptance. People, culture eats strategy for breakfast. We also often hear, and this is the equation that we live by in the past. Greg, your thoughts? Or
Sorry, I was on mute.
go ahead.
Yep, it is. If it's a clash of cultures, folks, then you have to really be diligent in terms of change management. That would be my, I like the equation, but if it's not a clash of cultures, okay, you could probably take a linear approach, but normally it's two diametrically opposed cultures.
Dani?
You have to be aware that when M&A happen, the fear factor becomes very high. So you need to address it and assure the company you bought that nothing will change, will not affect their livelihood. Yes, it's a pain in the neck and it creates more work, but at the end of the day, they'll be better off.
All right, thanks. So with that, I think we're going to just move on. Obviously, I will mention leadership. Leadership is absolutely key here. I would never underestimate the impact of leadership. With this, we're just going to cover this section rather quickly. We're running up the top of the hour. So, Dani, we're going to cover this leveraging ERPs to realize financial performance and risk benefits. We may just skip this section and get right into your transition success stories, if that's okay. Is that all right?
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so we'll leave these slides. They'll be in the deck for you. There's a nice overview here about the ERP functioning due diligence checklist. We kind of touched on this earlier, but this is a very nice checklist that we put together for you as a reference that you may want to look at when you're doing an M&A. But with that, I think we're going to move on to, and then Greg have a supply chain management readiness assessment, the 13 manufacturing tenets. This is also a fantastic way in using this with the company that's going to be acquired. Of course, you should have done it yourself as your company to find out what your maturity is, and then the acquiring company understanding what their maturity is. And then this is a great tool to marry those two. So this link is available to you in the presentation that will be sent out. It's also at the Supply Chain Risk Management Consortium's website. I encourage you to look at it, but this is a fantastic way from a supply chain management perspective is to marry your two systems and processes. With that, Dani, it's all yours.
Okay, this is a case study of a manufacturer, worldwide manufacturer who bought a distributor. They had two ERP systems. It require user integration, data integration, and user hopscotching from one to another. They bought the software the company represents now and are successfully running the system with one ERP system, reduction of 50% of expenses, and they have one ERP system without having multiple vendors. It's a success story that can be on my website. There is a video describing how they've done it on the SMC data system videos. Next, Jim. That's a typical case of M&A. 10 years ago, they were $100 million. Today, they're $1 billion. This is a case study would have done by Neculus, describing how they've gone from having multiple ERP system to one ERP system. They've been $100 million 10 years ago. Today, they're $1 billion. And they just put a link to the acquired company number 76 using one ERP system. And every time they buy a new company, the company represents, transfer their data, train the user, does any customization, and get them live. It's a total success. And that's basically where they are today. Those are the a case study of what they achieved by having a single ERP system with one, with not having to have multiple ERP. Next screen, Jim. There's a whole case study which can be found on my website. All detailed financials, the whole thing.
Yeah, this is a great case study because usually you say in ERP, you're talking a 3 to 5 year payback. Here you're paying back an ERP within a year or so. So, and then you're able to scale. So the way that VAI sets it up is very unique over other companies where that core shell is very flexible to take on added companies and can expedite that integration process. Dani?
That's today's reality. Inventory shortages. Best practice to have, you need to know when to buy and for whom to buy. What are your first moving products are? Number two, who, if beside having the one vendor, have an alternate vendor in case the goods are stuck off the ship of California or in China with a Corvette, have an alternate vendor. If you get it inventory late, you have production disruption, order being canceled, and excess inventory, the target story. Another thing is the landed cost. With the freight cost going out of control today, you must know what the product costing you when it reaches the warehouse. Otherwise, you end up selling it below cost or at low gross profit margin. It's a very important factor to know when to buy, how much to buy, whom to buy, and what your bottom line cost is. Next screen, please. Today's financials company require you the information instantly. If the bank or the insurance wants information and you tell them I'll close the warehouse to count my inventory, either your line of credit will decrease or the insurance will go up. With our system, you click on an icon, you download the inventory or the financial spreadsheet and email it to them within 5 minutes. It will result in the credit line not being eliminated or the insurance not gone. We are working in a very difficult environment today of shortages and surplus, and real-time information is essential now. Those are case studies. Imperial Bag, which you showed a case study before, $1 million saving in 1 year. Black River Produce, those are two young men in the 70s who bought a VW van and bought produce, sorted vegetables. Today they have $75 million, and there's a success story using a headset because produce have no barcode. And that's a manufacturer that saves $100,000 a year. The software is single database software, manufacturing, distribution of food, so the three industry can use the software when you do an M&A. Next screen, please, Jim. The software can be cloud or server. 90% of the people that we get are using the cloud. The source code is provided and it will be customized to your needs, so there's not a square peg in a round hole situation. At the 100 users, your ability to buy, you can buy limited, because in the M&A world, today it might be 100, but tomorrow it might be 200. So there's no need to pay additional users. In the case of Imperial Bag, they would have paid $2 or $3 million for additional users for going from 100 to $1 billion. And we integrate to multiple vendors, like the warehouse software and everything, and the software for the mid-market, manufacturing, distribution of food, starting at $30 million and going upward. I can be reached at this in that email, and my website have videos and success story of multiple vendors, multiple situations.
Thanks, Dani. Appreciate it. With that, we're closing out the webinar. Again, this was the capstone webinar of our series. We really enjoyed this series. We may we will start a new series next fall. It may look a little bit like this. We will, but we really enjoyed this series of webinars, and we look forward to you attending next fall's webinars and participating and giving us feedback on what you would like to see more of in our list of topics here. If there's another topic from a supply chain perspective that you're interested in, we would love to hear from you. With that, I did mention at the top of the hour that EIG is 50 companies, over 50 companies offering services in people, process, data, and technology areas, aligned to consulting and SaaS solutions. And we deliver that self-sustaining growth. And these companies, as part of the EIG umbrella, are excellent at M&A. A lot of them help out in the M&A field, and everything from process mining to artificial intelligence to hyper automation, RPA, to the change management that's required at the top to the bottom of the company to help transform the company. So we have a plethora of consultants and SaaS providers that are there to help you make that transition as quickly and seamlessly as possible. And they all generate these 90-day action plans of self-funding and self-sustaining growth. Again, we thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to hearing from you and seeing you at future webinars. And I think we can all feel rest assured by looking at these things, we can be part of that 20% that do reach the promised land and have that impact. But because we know what those things that could occur, and there's more than one way to scale a mountain. And we would look forward to working with you and speaking with you further on that. And with that, Dani, parting words?
Yes, it's a brand new world we live in now. And in the M&A world, you have to take into account two factors. Number one, the company you buy, does it have what kind of a software we have? And the ERP software we have, how accurate is the data? Can it be transferable to the host computer? And what kind of a effort it will take to transfer the data? Second factor is the users. How much time will it take to train the users to learn the new system? And the third factor is the human factor, the anxiety, the fear. We are all afraid of changes. So addressing the user fear, it's a very important issue.
Greg?
You bet. Due diligence regarding the business systems, which we talked about all during the webinar, is critical because, again, M&A is a risk event for both camps. So critical success factor, good project management for the M&A.
Excellent. Good project management, risk management, and you will be able to realize and realize and make it to that second plateau. So with that, again, we thank you for joining us this week, and we look forward to seeing you in the fall very soon. Have a great summer.